Our lead protagonist, Jasmine Bay, she's living in Oakland. She's working in Oakland. She works at a really like shittily run mental health facility because Reagan defunded all the mental health facilities in the 80s, and they're just sort of the ones that are there just kind of chugging along. And she's living a life that she's not sure that she really wants. And but she's just keeping on like it's one of those it's like that fight or flight thing. Like in when you're only focused on survival, you can't really think about like what it would take or require for you to thrive. So she's just sort of chugging along, like really like acting out of impulse, and her life sucks. And when we meet her, she walks in to check on a patient and he's hung himself, and her first thought is like, "Oh man, lucky." Like she doesn't think she's suicidal, but everyone around her thinks it, can see it, knows it's really obvious. She's estranged from her brother, who's 3 years younger, because their godmother, who recently died, was suffering from dementia, and he and his wife were taking care of her. And even though Jasmine's a psychiatric nurse, she was like, I can't see my godmother like that. Like, I can't leave my job and go back up north. So she's in a like she's not in a good place. So this trip back up to Humboldt for her godmother's funeral, she's like hopeful that like maybe she can patch things up with her brother. Maybe she can patch things up with her former best friend, her brother's wife. And maybe like this can, now that her godmother's dead, like maybe they can move past all the stuff that was between them. Jasmine Bay's grandfather, William Whipple, he is this sort of mythical figure in their hometown of Red Cedar, California. He's known as the hometown bar, the Skyliner, is named after him because he formerly worked on a logging crew as the Skyliner, who's the guy who climbs up in the trees and sets the wires that they need to drag the logs that they cut down to the lumber mill. Because when you're doing logging on a mountain, like how are you gonna like you can cut down as many trees as you want, but how do you get them down? That's where the term skid row comes from, where they would put pine tar on rolls of logs and make them slippery so that they could roll logs down the skid row of logs. So there's a lot of different ways that logging works, especially on uneven terrain like the mountains in Humboldt County. But William Whipple, he is he's a mythical figure and a mysterious figure because he's known as different things to many people. Jasmine sees him as this very noble eco terrorist who was like sabotaging the logging ops. And because of that, the loggers murdered him in 1980. And to her brother James, who works for the same logging company, William Whipple got what he deserved because he was trying to kill the loggers. And when they murdered him, when they murdered him, it was basically in self-defense in his mind. And the reality is somewhere in between, but also somewhere more supernatural than that. Because we find out in the prologue of the anti-logging prologue of Humboldt Cut that the that he works for the logging company, but he's also in league with these bark monsters that are killing all of the loggers. And there's like he has something to do with it, but we're not sure what. And throughout the book, you find out. No one cares about the facts. If you can tell it in a good story, if you have a message that you can hammer over and over again, then that's how you get through to people rather than like facts and figures and like the logging reports. Only 4% of the old growth redwood forest exists from its pre colonization levels. Like the first census that they did in 1896, now there's only 4% of those forests left. And that's only because of conservation efforts for national parks. And when we talk about horror, like there's a lot of talk about like trauma. And I wanted the bark skins, the barkers, to be a manifestation of the forest trauma, but also human trauma of like what, like if something happened to you that only left 4% of you left, you would never get over it. And people, a lot of horror is something kind of bad happening to someone and them letting it turn them into a villain and ruin everybody's life. So if you want to treat the forest like a character, what we've done to the forest is really messed up and really like if you had done that to a person, it would be correct in villainizing the world of man, the world of industry, and coming after them. And the bark monsters are a way in which the forest gets back at the loggers and the trespassers and the people that are coming into the forest and fucking it up and taking away like a tree falling in the woods isn't the problem. It's when they take it away and steal the biomass away from the forest. It's like if they cut off your hand and then took it from you and dangled it from a wire as it went down the mountain to the hand processing factory. Like, and as a black writer, it the skyline especially of like like seeing a body of a living thing hanging from a rope like that. It there's a lot of imagery in the racial history of the United States that resonated with me across that, and I think that there's a lot of parallels to be seen and made for myself and also for the reader of like recognizing that like all of these struggles come from the same system of oppression. Trick eating monsters are fun and all, but like I love townies. I love great like when I moved to California, I was mostly in like San Francisco and Oakland and would go down to LA to do stand up and like it's a very different type of person. Like and then I would go up to do comedy in Humboldt County and the people there, like everyone's a character. And they really reminded me of the people that I grew up with. There's sort of like big boned and feral Great Lakes townies who aren't camera ready and they're just like you can't tell if they're like nice or mean because they're busting your balls, but they're also laughing the whole time. And you're just like, when I would go up to Humboldt, I was like, oh, these are the people that this makes me feel like home. Of like these like weirdly mean, nice, aggressively chill weed farmers who are all on like a little bit of meth and like they would pay you in weed and you're just like, thank you. Okay, cool. But I mean, I love small towns. I love like a town of characters, like like Springfield or like Pawnee, Indiana. And in Humboldt Cut, I wanted to capture those kind of people for better or for worse. But there's also like so there's one bar in town. Everybody hangs out there. They have Jasmine's godmother's funeral or her celebration of life there, and Jasmine's eulogy gets heckled by some random guys that she went to high school with who like ratty Matt and ugly Matt and like it's not she gets into a bar fight, spoilers, but it's that thing of like the aggressive and like violent baseline of this place is very different from in a city where like if you fought somebody randomly people would think that you should be arrested for assault. But there, it's just kind of like this static of violence that's underpinning everything in this town. Because it's funny and it's also like so sad that these groups of people, like there's a chapter called The Night Cut where the newest scion of the Mooney family who owns the timber company. He's a junior in college and he's like, "You're gonna work for me one day." And I said that he prides himself on being able to talk to anybody no matter where they went to college. And everybody else on the crew, none of them went to college. They it's this idea of like people aren't aware of how different and what how different they have it from other people, especially people with privilege. They're just like, life is amazing, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is awesome. We're not even going to be using wood in 50 years. Like, the future is mine. And these guys are like, I hope there's wood in 50 years because if there isn't, my family doesn't have anything. And there's a tension there that can be played for horror, but I like to play it for humor just because, like, it's less of a bummer to be like, to be like, oh, these guys aren't seeing on the same eye. These guys don't know what Etsy is. They don't care about like pulling a stump to pour resin on it. The like, it's funnier to have that interaction than to play it for what it really is, which is just like sad and they would say nothing because he's their boss's son.